Hey everybody, it's Cecilia from Pardon Farm. I wanted to talk to you this afternoon about winter sowing. Winter sowing is one way for the people in more northern regions to feel like they're starting seeds in January, February, early March before we would typically start them indoors. And when people in more southern regions are showing you their seedlings and really giving you that desire to get started. I know I struggle every year. I always start a few seeds just a little too early, and then I have these big leggy plants, or I have to up pot them. So this is one way to help avoid starting plants too early. Here in northwestern Wisconsin, most of our seedlings will get started in mid-May, so I'm still about a month out from starting seedlings inside. Now, I did get impatient and start a few tomato plants, and I will probably start a few pepper plants just because I never have this early and I want to see what happens. So part of what I love about gardening is it's an experiment, and it's a pretty low input for the risk. So if I waste 5 seeds on peppers that don't turn out because I started them too early inside, then I didn't waste that much money. So with winter sowing, one of the things that you have to keep in mind is these containers are going to go outside. So it works really well for seeds that need like a winter stratification. They need that cold snap before they germinate. Some seeds that need stratification are like black-eyed Susans or lavenders. Those are things that grow really well here. There are seeds that do really well with winter sowing. Last year I sowed a lot of broccoli in my winter sowing jugs. So the brassicas, things that are very frost hardy, do well, because especially here in Wisconsin, some days it'll be 50 or 60 during the day, but get down to 20 or 30 at night. And so we have this wide range of temperatures that we're trying to deal with. And if you don't have a frost hardy plant in there, then they'll probably die, to be honest, even if you cover the jugs. So things that I winter sow are broccoli and cabbage. I'm gonna try some lavender this year. You could also do spinach or kale. I personally don't, because they start producing so fast. I think that it's more worth direct sowing. And you could do root vegetables. I've seen a lot of people do it. I personally don't, mostly because carrots, I don't want to transplant. I don't want the shock for my plants. And really, beets and radishes produce in 30 days or so. And I just think they're better off being direct sowed in our climate. Now, like I said, you have to do some research and figure out what zone you are in and how that affects what you should or shouldn't be winter sowing. We're in zone 4 here in northwestern Wisconsin, and frost tender things just won't work for us. Whereas in the south, there might be some areas where you can winter sow frost tender things because things don't freeze like they do here. Today, it's been really warm compared to the last week or so. And by that, I mean it's 13 degrees Fahrenheit. So one advantage of winter sowing is that the investment is significantly lower than if you were going to try and build a greenhouse. These are like little mini greenhouses for 2, maybe 3 plants. One of the things that you're gonna need for winter sowing is a milk jug or some sort of container. I personally use milk jugs, they're my favorite. You can also use ice cream pails or 2-liter bottles. I would caution you, if you're using something like an ice cream pail, you have to make sure you put some holes in the lid so that moisture and snow can get in to your plant, but not too many holes so that you're losing all the heat. So for a milk jug, we just take the lid off and that's our hole. In addition to milk jugs, you're going to need an X-Acto knife or a scissors, something with a sharp tip to cut the milk jug. I personally also use a pliers with a nail and a candle, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. And then of course you need some sort of seed Like I said, some sort of frost hardy seed if you're winter sowing in a northern climate like we are. And you'll need soil to sow your seeds. I also use tape for taping my lid shut and labels. Now, let's talk a minute about labels. Can you please believe me? I know you think you're gonna remember what you put in this is a water jug. So you're gonna make a mental note and say, okay, in the water jug I had broccoli, and in the milk jug I just broke my label. In the water jug I had broccoli, and in the milk jug I had lavender, and you're not gonna label your plants. Please believe me when I tell you that you won't remember because you have so many things on your plate. So please just label your plant. I personally use plastic labels. These ones are pretty brittle because I used them last year and the sun makes them brittle. But I had a bunch of them gifted to me last year, so that's what I'm using. But to write on these, if you use permanent marker, the sun will bleach it out and you won't be able to read what it says. So I use a paint marker, and those work really well. If you shake it up and write lavender or whatever on it, I have not had an issue with paint markers fading. Just make sure you use a darker color. I really wish I would have been able to get black, but they didn't have black at the store when I went. So I'm going with silver, which is not the ideal color, but it does work because I have yellow labels, so you can still see it pretty good. So let's talk about the process of getting your jugs ready to winter sow. As you can see, I have a couple ready here. When you do your jugs, I like to make mine a little bit deeper than some people do. A lot of people will cut right here, right underneath the handle. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said, experiment, see how you want to do it. But personally, I want 4 or 5 inches of soil, which gives the seed a little bit more insulation. It has more ability for it to retain moisture and gives the plant a little bit more room to grow, because we do have such a late transplant date for most of our crops here. I want to give the plant the most room to grow where it's not going to get root bound, those kinds of things. So I like to cut just above the handle, which gives you 4 or 5 inches of soil space. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your knife or your scissors or whatever you're using with a sharp point, and very carefully you're going to put it onto your jug, and you're just going to push straight down and puncture a hole in it. Then I prefer to use a scissors to cut the rest of the way, and what I'm going to do is cut all the way around, because we cut higher than the handle meets the bottom. So I can cut, and I have my kids do this because with the scissors, it cuts really easy. I cut all the way around, and then the handle works like a hinge for us. So then if you just pinch here, you can open this up and there's your hinge. So one of the things that you have to do when you're getting ready to winter sow is to make sure you put some sort of drainage in your containers. Now, I've seen a lot of different ways to do this, and I don't think that any of them are wrong. I just think that some ways are better than others. I know some people use drill bits and drill into their jugs. To me, that was terrible. I also saw a video where they put water in the jug and let it freeze so that when they drilled in, their jug didn't collapse. And I'm sure that works. Personally, this is my favorite method. I take a nail with a pliers and I hold it over the flame of a candle just for a little bit. It doesn't take very long, and you don't have to get the whole nail hot. You just have to get the tip hot. And once you have a hold of the nail with the pliers, don't try and do this with your hand because you'll burn your fingers, but then you just take it out of the flame and you take the bottom of your jug and you just push it into it, and it very easily puts a hole in your jug. If you can see this little tiny hole that it put in. Now, I usually put probably about, I don't know, 5 or 6 of this size hole in the bottom of your jug. They don't have to be huge holes. They don't have to be perfectly spaced. The water doesn't care. It flows down and it will find the hole. The most important part is allowing your plant to have some sort of drainage so that it doesn't drown. And that's really the biggest thing. Now, one other little piece of advice with this method is if you take this jug after you're all done putting holes in it, and you can see I have 5 in there right now, but if I take this and I'm sitting at my kitchen table and I set it like this on my kitchen table, I'm gonna have burnt plastic stuck to my table, so don't do that. Just lay it on its side and let it cool off. Now, this winter sowing jug, we took the cap off, right? We cut it in half so that we have some sort of hinge, and we put drainage holes in it. Now, we're ready to go with this jug to start planting. So then, like these jugs, you'll see are filled with soil. So you take and you fill it up with whatever kind of soil you want. And I try to fill it, like I said, I want a big, thick layer of soil. Now, you can cheat, you can use 2 or 3 inches of soil if you have to. Just remember, the less soil you give them, the less room you are giving your plants to grow roots. And so you may have plants that are root bound. Now, once you have soil in there, then you can go ahead and plant your seeds based on the package directions. So like I said, today I'm gonna plant some cabbage. This is Copenhagen cabbage. It's really frost hardy. It does super good. Last year I winter sowed some of it and it did well. The only thing is, if you don't take your winter sowing stuff and open it up when it really starts to get warm out, it doesn't take long for it to wilt and dry out, especially if you're not getting a bunch of rain and stuff. So please remember that. But otherwise, winter sowing's pretty much hands off until it starts getting warm out. Now with this, I'm gonna plant according to the package directions on depth, but I'm going to plant my seeds a little bit thicker than I really want them to grow, because you have to remember, when you're winter sowing, it's not really ideal seed germination conditions. So we have to remember that less than ideal conditions equals less than ideal germination rate. So instead of putting 3 seeds in here because I want 3 plants, I might put 5 seeds in here because I want 2 or 3 plants. And so that's what I just did. I just put 5 seeds around the outside here. And then the last step is, once you plant your seeds to your depth and cover them up with soil, you're gonna close this and wrap it with, I use clear tape to keep it shut. And that's it, you're done. So winter sowing is super easy. The kids love it. It's easy to do inside in the warm, and to feel like you're at least getting a head start on your garden. One more thing, don't forget to put your label, I almost forgot. Don't forget to put your label in your jugs, because like I said, you won't remember what you planted and then you're gonna be sad. So something else that we're gonna plant in some winter sowing is broccoli. Now last year I struggled with my broccoli that I winter sowed. It looked really healthy, and when I transplanted it, it just sort of died. So I'm not super sure what happened, but like I said, gardening's an experiment. We're just gonna try it. This is Waltham broccoli. I put some in there. If I'm out 5 seeds, I'm out 5 seeds. It's okay, it's no big deal. The last thing that I'm gonna try and winter sow today, and I might do some more winter sowing, but we also this year got our grow lights set up, so I want to do some more stuff in the grow lights. But another thing that I'm going to winter sow this year is lavender. And I really tried hard last year on the lavender, and I just never got anything to come up. successfully. So lavender is one of those seeds that does have a stratification period, and I didn't winter sow any last year, and I'm wondering if that's why I didn't get any to grow successfully. The other problem with that is if that indeed is the problem, there is a ton of seeds out in my garden that may volunteer, and if they do, I'll probably just leave them, or I might transplant them. But it never grew well for me last year, and I really would like to have lavender, so we're actually going to do winter sowing of lavender. I'm going to try and grow it under the grow lights when it is more appropriate time, and if that neither one of those work, we'll probably direct sow some more and see what happens there again. So like I said, the last step here is just to tape around so that your lid stays shut, and then you want to go and place them outside. And it doesn't really matter, okay, it does kind of matter where you place them. It doesn't have to be in a specific spot where you place them, but you do want to put them somewhere that they get sun. I put them south facing because that's where we get the most amount of sun. I put them honestly in the middle of our yard because we have a lot of trees, and so to put them somewhere that they're not going to be shaded a lot of the time is important. Some people make the mistake of, oh, I want to have them by my house so I can peek at them and look at them, and that's okay to have them by your house, but make sure you don't put them under an awning or something, because you want snow and moisture to get in there, but you don't want, you know, your entire awning worth of snow and ice to fall and crush your little mini greenhouses, essentially. If you do put them out like in the middle of your yard and you have some sort of animal or small children, make sure you like mark where they are so that something doesn't go careening over them and smash them or kick them or tip them over, those kind of things. So put them somewhere that they're not going to get tipped over, they're not going to get smashed, they're going to get sunlight, and they're going to get moisture. And then this spring, when things start germinating, just keep an eye on them. And when the temperatures start to really rise, then you can just pop this open and leave that be during the daytime if it's getting hot. And if it's still getting really cool at night, then just close it back up, put some tape on it, and seal it up so that the frost or those kinds of things aren't getting on it. But don't forget to open them up, because I think that's what happened to my broccoli last year, is that I didn't open them up and then they just got too hot and dried out. So that's an important little tidbit. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. This is just one great way for you to get your hands in the soil and keep growing throughout the winter, learning new things and experimenting. If you have great suggestions on winter sowing or questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments or send us a message on Instagram or Facebook. I look forward to hearing from you. Keep growing.